You are listening to Rouge Radio, a proud member of the Canadian Football Podcast Network.
It's time to get the point as Rouge Radio is ready to kick off.
Ready!
The best football talk with the best in the business.
So what is the cost? You have 2 first-round picks this year because the Argos are dumb enough to trade for Drew Willie.
A few rookies.
We go directly to the on-field product. We welcome to the show the 20th overall pick in this past Sunday's CFL draft, DeAndre Wright of the Alouettes. DeAndre, welcome to the show.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for having me.
And the occasional Hall of Famer.
Please welcome Doug Brown, who is one of the members of the current class of 2016 in the CFL Hall of Fame. Doug, thanks for joining us today.
Oh, thank you guys for the kind words and for having me on the program.
Rouge Radio is on the air. Here's your hosts, Robert Dalton and Tony Allen.
Later, before we get into the banter, just let you know this podcast is sponsored by the good people at Manscaped.com. Go to Manscaped.com, enter the promo code Rouge, and your order is discounted up to 20% with free worldwide shipping. Tony, it's been a year. Yeah, there we go. I had to put in my laugh track, and we'll talk more about that. But hey, how was your holidays? I mean, I know, but we recorded this last night, and some things didn't happen, and our situation greatly improved. The situation. So, we're kind of delaying the inevitable. But otherwise, how was your holidays?
It's fantastic. I love Christmas. I'm a Christmas guy. I've got the Christmas village going on, like a whole. Actually, it's kind of become a small town now. It's pretty big. It's not a village. Like, I go all out. I've got young kids still, so Christmas is very special around the house. They get excited. I think Christmas morning started at 5:30, was done by like 5:40. Everything was open. But yeah. It's fantastic. Being at home with the family, it's what the holidays should be. It's what I love the most about it. So mine was fantastic. How was yours?
Mine was perfect, and if you're watching the video version of this, you could tell I'm using something that my wife got me. Every year, my wife always, outdoes herself because she always asks, what do I want for Christmas or what do I want for my birthday? And I'm not, this answer doesn't. I don't want anybody else to feel like they're being selfish and whatnot. But I always hem and haw, and I'll think of something, but it's, there's certain things that you could use, but you don't think about it. And then that's what the wife does. So I'm talking on this condenser mic, right? So obviously you can attest to it's the voice is coming clear, and hopefully that when we do through post-production, you can tell the difference. But this also comes with a soundboard, as you can, as I already said. Yeah, so it comes out with a whole bunch of sound effects. I don't get why that music is there, but that's an option. Yeah, there we go. Oh yeah, so if we ever do trivia, we can do that.
I like the little Wayne joining the podcast.
Yeah.
What?
There was.
Awesome. I feel we need crickets.
Not at all. But the cool thing here is this.
I can now disguise my voice. This is pretty awesome.
Yeah.
That's got to. I got to get rid of it for now because it comes with a It's like its own like professional DJ here.
Nice.
Station. And it's funny because I use the female voice, although it sounds like, the robot from War Games, the 80s movie or what have you. Mm-hmm. Always in response to one of our last shows that we did last year, where I was coughing up a lung and I was imitating my wife, and it made it sound worse because I was, under the weather. Dave sends us a text saying, friend of the program, he says, I didn't know you were married to Elmo, so now I could use this. And the benefit of doing this is
we now have characters. I could do we have a booth announcer. Rouge Radio is sponsored by Manscaped.
And listen to us and you'll get your family back.
Oh yeah.
There's Satan. Um,
All right, that's screwing me up. That's making me nerved up. Yeah. So if you ever, don't if your kids get kidnapped, don't come to me. It was definitely not me. Last night we did this show, so a lot of this is kind of well. The good thing is that also to pertaining to my wife is she ordered something for me for Christmas / Boxing Day, a brand new Chromebook, and that's what we're doing. It's a good thing that the recording last night didn't work, so now it's like brand new. We now have a the video version of our podcast if we're able to
You're
upload it.
basically a radio station now. You are a radio station. I need to up my game now.
I know, yeah, exactly. I even got the background here. The lighting could be a little bit better, but yeah, I could just have get a ton of empty egg shell, or not shells, but the
Egg cartons.
yes, yeah, the egg the cartons.
I was just about to say we're going to do the next show, and there's going to be baffling all over the walls. The big styrofoam baffling that looks like egg cartons everywhere. You're up in the game.
Yeah, exactly. But also some good news came out of it is that earlier today, the Ottawa Redblacks announced that Rick Campbell is joining their staff as their special teams coordinator. Some pretty big news in that regard. So, he's a good football mind. You knew that he wasn't going to be unemployed for long. And he joins Willie Fields as their defensive coordinator, and obviously Bobby Dice. Can't think of their offensive coordinator at all. The name escapes me, but a very well experienced staff in Ottawa looking to take that next step. So it'll be interesting to see what they do in free agency in about a month. But having an experienced staff is probably a very good step to take, isn't it?
It is, and he's known there. He was successful there.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't leave on bad terms that I'm aware of, and I think it's a good move for him. I do think BC messed that one up with how quickly they got rid of him under the circumstances, and I think he is back where he needs to be, and I think it's going to work out with him.
Yeah, and a lot of people are saying, well, why would he take a lesser position when he was unceremoniously fired as head coach back in after the 2019 season? Well, we look at what Paul LaPolice did with Winnipeg. He was fired after the 2012 or in middle of the 2012 season, went back 3.5 years later as their offensive coordinator, and it pretty much has been the root of their offense for the last 6 years. So, this is if you're an Ottawa Redblock fans, and there's a lot of you, no matter what you do in free agency or who you may lose, this is a positive step. Because you definitely need a well-experienced staff. The Bobby Dice is kind of hit or miss sometimes with his coaching decisions. Tommy Condell was the guy that I was thinking of. So very vast experience on that sidelines. I guess the main thing that we wanted to talk about is soon-to-be friend of the program, Luke Wilson, Jay Onright's. I hate to call a guy of his size a sidekick to Jay Onright, but essentially he's his sidekick on TSN. Brought out a couple of points wanting to. Now I'm not able to find the tweets, but I do remember because we recorded this last night, so verbatim. He said that the CFL needs to take advantage of the Canadian sports scope as it is right now, and he's not wrong, because he used the points that, well, in hockey, Canada, isn't exactly, going through, some positive instances. Obviously, with the World Juniors, the Stanley Cup not coming north of the border in 30 years or what have you. The Blue Jays ceremoniously losing out on free agent after free agent, and then the Raptors currently right now not being able to, to do anything. So now is the time for the CFL to make a name for itself, and then he's right there. But he had a couple of tips, and the first of which was to limit the amount of punts per game. Now, I know this is kind of be mundane for us because we've kind of voiced our concerns with this one, but why don't we just take a shot here?
I do have his tweets here too, if you want me to help, if you want me to go through them.
Yeah.
And his first point is the punts, limit the punts. He wants to give teams 5 total punts per game. And then other than that, they'll have to go on third down.
Yeah. And the idea in a vacuum isn't horrible. It's not the worst thing that I've heard, but the league has actually bent over backwards and did anything what it could to improve punt returns in the last couple of years. So if they went ahead and limited punts, essentially you're saying that whatever rules you've created in the last couple of years is it's useless. And I don't think that is something that the league will even consider, moving forward with that idea. And it's like I said, in a vacuum, it's not a horrible idea. It's just not something that there's a lot of things with the CFL that need to be fixed before even limiting the punt should even be considered. But given the fact of what they've done in the past couple of years, I don't even think it's an option. The second tip was to strike a deal with the union. If you have the tweet, the follow-up tweet on that one, it is
number 2, strike an agreement with the union about time allowed in the facility. He believes at the moment there are 2 off days in the CFL and certain days are limited hours. This needs to be adjusted. The more time spent as a team in the facility as a team, generally the better your team will play. Don't limit guys who are chasing greatness.
Yeah, and again, in a vacuum.
So don't limit the time they're allowed at the field. Yeah,
so in a vacuum, not a horrible thing. I think team camaraderie is something that could be, considered a positive thing. However, when you consider that this is probably something that the union probably asked for, that if you're a guy who's coming in at 8 o'clock in the morning and you get to go at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, you're probably not going to want to. You're probably going to say no to that. When they came out with the 1 physical practice a week in regards to have pads, there was plethora of CFL Hall of Famers that went on online through Twitter saying, "Hey, listen, I wish we had these kind of rules when I was playing. This would have prolonged my career." So making it mandatory for players to spend more time at the facility for whatever reason that may be. I might be reading too much into it as far as what he means is more time at the facility, whether it be training or whatnot. And if I am, that's on me. But I think the union has built it in right now as it is right now. And I think if you're going to say, hey, you have to spend more time either on practice, training, what have you, I don't think that the union will go for that. And that's a hard no for me too as well, in my opinion.
Yeah. And the third one?
I can't remember if there was.
It's basically on-field product. The implication that an out-of-playoff team playing a playoff team still performs better on the field than 2 Canadian Football League teams. That is the Coles Notes version of it. The implication that, the on-field product, regardless of the situation, is still 2 teams going all out, over the belief that maybe the Canadian side doesn't exactly do that. He doesn't give an example for the CFL side other than if you watch the NFL, you're always going to get the best regardless of the playoff situation at hand, which I think is probably the most clueless look at it. I don't think you do get that kind of competitiveness between an out-of-playoff team, and I think that one's a little off base. I don't think you do, because if you have 2 teams, like, again, I've watched a Super Bowl where 2 minutes left and a 5-point differential, they're shaking hands because you can take a knee for the last 2 minutes. That is not on-field product, and it is certainly not how I want a championship game to end, with only 1 score, 1 touchdown, separating teams from a championship with 2 full minutes left, and players shaking hands because there's no way the other team can get the call back. To me, that is not superior on-field product.
Yeah, and I think something I remember saying last night is the one thing that CFL or the NFL has done is marketing to to their TV audience. And one of the things that I mentioned is if they find that there is a game that is between two non-playoff teams, let's use a Monday Night Football, right? Monday Night Football is your core audience. That is kind of like that's your weekly Super Bowl game, right? Uh, you have two non-playoff teams in week 16 or week 17, and you have the obligation to be like, okay, do we want to show Cleveland and Tennessee in week 17 on Monday Night Football in prime time, or do we want Detroit and Minnesota right now? We're going to go for Detroit and Minnesota, regardless if they lose the next. They have that 2 week window where they're able to make that change. But I do love that option. Whereas in TSN with the CFL, it's set in stone, right? So that's why, and the situation here is also different because all games are broadcasted on TSN. Whereas as far as the Canadian, like the low level NFL fan, you're not watching every game. You're only watching what's on the national broadcast on TSN, CBS, NBC, CTV, or what have you. And then chances are there's like 3 games amongst those 6 stations. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't really matter to fans like the. So it's kind of apples and oranges in that regards. But I do like the idea of having, having something, if there. What's the game that happened last year? Saskatchewan and Calgary, the last game of the season. If that was the last game of the season, okay, that's kind of like a bad example because that was a game that nobody really cared for, but it was also the last game of the season. If you maybe have some kind of bragging rights for that, like maybe the winner of this game gets the option to move up a spot in the draft, or something ridiculous. I mean, again, bad example because Saskatchewan ended up making the playoffs and then winning one, whereas Calgary is now looking forward to number 1 overall. But again, again, none of these in a vacuum, these points that he's brought up aren't horrible, but again, these aren't like the hill that I'm willing to die on as far as if I'm going to make changes. These things aren't even on my top 15 or top 20 of things that need to rectify the CFL.
Yeah, and I think his third point is more of a comment for the sake of making a comment. I don't think it's a suggestion because you can't improve the on-field product. The only way to improve the on-field product is to give players more money to get them out of the NFL. And you would if you had more money to pay those players, they would come, and then in theory your infield product increases. There's no way to improve the on-field product without bringing over those better players, and you can't do that without money. So his point is an observation, but not plausible unless he's going to find a way to make Canadian Football League able to pay salaries greater. And to use a video game reference, if you've ever done these, usually when you play games with higher tiered players, higher tiered cars, you've got your S tier, your A, B, C, and D tiers of whatever it is. If the CFL held money, you might not get those S tier players to come in. You might near the end of the career, but you're guaranteed you'll get 90% of those A levels to come in, probably all the B levels, but that's the only way to make the actual on-field product better. You can't do anything except steal those players. So he really doesn't have a point on how to change on-field product because, again, even if you have, there's no guarantee even that the game of the week in the NFL is going to be a good game. And you have 16 games to choose from in the NFL. You only have 4 in the Canadian Football League, and you're going to watch them all. So even moving games around doesn't matter because nationally, we're going to see every game regardless. So if you move a game on Sunday to Friday night, I'm still going to see that game on Sunday. So his point is it's a comment to improve it, but it's what we've been talking about the CFL for the past 50 years.
Yeah.
For his point, again, his second point was time at the facility. That one, I don't even know how it affects anybody. Like, that's great. You're talking about hanging out, but they can all go over to someone's house and have a PlayStation night if they want to. If guys want to hang out, they're going to hang out. They can go to a gym and hang out. So again, it's a point. Why not have them? If there's some guys that live to train, let all the guys that live to train go use the facilities.
Mm-hmm.
But his point for that doesn't help guys hang out. They can still do that. Camaraderie is camaraderie. Like, you'll see it everywhere with sports. Guys that are getting along will get along. And then his first point tampers with things I don't think you can tamper with. Now you're tampering with the essence of football and eliminating punts. Like that's like saying we want to cut back on stoppages in hockey. So let's get rid of goaltender. Let's get rid of offensive zone faceoffs or defensive zone faceoffs. Now when the goalie gets the puck and holds it, everyone goes back offside from the other team. The goalie just drops the puck and we keep playing. It's essentially what he's suggesting, that there's no more goalie stoppages in hockey. It cuts back on stoppages. And then finally a 20-minute game of hockey gets played in 22 minutes.
Yeah.
So it's not plausible. It is a comment for making a comment, but you can't take punting out, because even if you limit it to 5, what if you've got an intense game and now you're forced to go at it on third down? You shouldn't have only 5 instances to try and protect yourself in such a close game. It isn't practical. It cannot be applied without actually negatively affecting the game and his third point, the on-field product.
Yeah, and what specifically in the game, in the CFL game, corner coffin punts. Like if you're third and 5 from the 53, obviously that is trying to that's a 60-yard field goal. Not too many players are going to, or kickers are able to make the 60-yard field goal. But you get a lot of punters who are able to punt it down and nail it within the 5. So you're taking that essence of the game out because you're down to your last punt that you're mandated to take. And my second point is one thing that I've always, when we talk about rule changes here, I've always said I hate changes for the sake of changes. I mean, if you're going to change something, it better be for a legitimate reason. Whether or not it's happened, whether or not there's precedence, but there's got to be a legitimate reason to go forward with this change. Case in point, the NFL kickoff rules. The NFL kickoffs suck. So they created a rule change to make it even more suckier. You might as well just join the a game in progress like a minute after kickoff, because that's when the actual game starts, because nobody's returning a kickoff in that league. It just doesn't happen. Changes for the sake of changes I do not agree with, and essentially, as like I said, in a vacuum, these ideas are okay. Not something I would go for, but it does reek of changes for the sake of changes, in my opinion. Doesn't solve anything, and really doesn't market it, the CFL as much as you would like it to be. And again, my opinion, we'd love to have Luke Wilson on the podcast in the near future to discuss this further, because out of nowhere, he seems to be Captain Canada, where he just he is loving the CFL. He is governing the CFL. It's almost like he's gunning to be the next commissioner of the CFL.
Yeah. And why don't we embrace this guy? Like, you don't have to like him, but we should be embracing this guy. Like, he's on TSN and he's promoting the game. Maybe not always positively, but the reactions to him were pretty absurd. Like, the people taking it so personally. Like, I get you don't want to get your toe stepped on by a guy that doesn't follow the CFL and is trying to work his way in. But my God, someone in the Toronto media is trying to get in. This is a unicorn. We found a unicorn. Someone in Eastern Canadian Toronto market is trying to get in. And first thing we do is half of us try and reject him. I'm excited to get him on the show. I hope he legit comes on to the show. Yeah, exactly. So Luke Wilson, if you are, I'm sorry.
for disparaging your thoughts in the last 10 minutes, but we'd love to hear further because any new idea is, I guess it's a good idea, but just not the ones that we've talked about.
Yeah.
All right. Anything that you want to add before we go to the next segment?
Nope, that's good. Covered two good points so far.
Perfect. All right. Let's get to new fan favorite blind rankings, CFL. So last night we kind of did it, and I'm kind of upset because, well, maybe not, because if there were any Bomber fans listening, they would be upset with me because some of them are die-hard Kahari Jones fans. But
there you go.
Yeah. All right. So what do you got for me? Or should we go into what that we talked about, or am I just kind of like?
You can talk about your blind rankings yesterday, quickly, if you want to let everyone know how you blind ranked the top 5 quarterbacks of the last quarter century, because we are at the quarter century mark, believe it or not, 25 years. So I threw the 5 quarter century quarterbacks that played more than 5 games.
Yeah.
So if you ask where Kerwin Bell was, he didn't make the cut.
Yeah, and Tony's, Tony, to be more specific, who made playoff appearances as a member of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. And I can't remember where I put Matt Nichols at number 4. I put Kahari Jones as number 3. Or no, Kevin Glenn is Kevin Glenn is number 3. Kahari Jones is number 2. And I had Buck Pierce as number 5, I believe.
Yes, I believe so.
But I also had Zach Collaros at number 1. Once I realized where you were going, it kind of made it a little bit easier. But now, looking back at everything, we'd probably have Collaros, Kevin Glenn, Matt Nichols, Buck Pierce, and then Kahari Jones is my top 5. So, So, I mean, it doesn't really matter because that show did not go through. So, what do you got for me this time? See if
all right, this one I wanted to do. It didn't work out the way I wanted to. It's only 3 players, but I don't care. I'm going with it, and I mean, let's get it done. I guess it's our game. There's no rules to blind rankings that I'm aware of. So your first player is Damon Allen, and immediately your brain starts thinking, okay, Damon Allen, is he going Argos? Is he going quarterbacks? Is he going BC Lions? I know you're thinking out what, so that way you can plan out your order. That's how fast your brain works. But first off, I'm talking to give you time. Damon Allen. And you've only got 3.
Okay. Damon Allen is number 1 when it comes to rushing quarterbacks, I believe, in the league history. But when it comes to airing it out, no matter where he was, although he was very successful with BC, somewhat successful in Toronto. I mean, he got that Grey Cup title in 04, but he was never the guy he is the reason. So because he was able to get it done with his legs, I got Damon Allen spot right in the middle, number 2.
Okay, Damon Allen goes number 2. Next, Mike Pringle.
Oh, okay. This will surprise me. Mike Pringle, the only 2,000-yard rusher in the CFL, did it with a very young. Did he do it with? No, he might have done it with Tracy Ham as his quarterback, but he was the focal point of the offense, even with a young Anthony Calvillo. And some may argue that Anthony Calvillo may not have been Anthony Calvillo without a premier running back like Mike Pringle. I think when Mike Pringle went to Edmonton again, probably, his career, his legacy might have been torn just based on that move alone. But in the grand scheme of things here, Mike Pringle probably one of the best running backs in the CFL history. Top 3, definitely, or at least top 5. But I'm going to go number 1, Mike Pringle.
I thought maybe you'd go that way. And then I feel like the list balances out that the last player, who is the bottom player? We'll see if you think that out of the 3. Alan Pitts is your number 3. What's your thoughts on Alan Pitts in this group?
Alan Pitts is obviously one of the elite of elite receivers. Is in the Calgary Stampeders legacy when it coming from the from the 90s, and I think even the early 2000s. That Stampeders organization lived and died through Doug Flutie, but Alan Pitts did his job in that, and I don't know. This is, really speculating, but maybe Doug Flutie doesn't have that pedigree without Alan Pitts, or at least Jeff Garcia doesn't as well, and then Dave Dickinson and so on and so forth. So yeah, I like this list.
Number 3, Alan Pitts. Number 2, Damon Allen. Number 1, Mike Pringle. Looking at the 3 names, does that feel right to you? Because it's 3 different players, 3 different styles, 3 different positions.
I love this aspect of that. I'm quite comfortable with that list. I don't think there's anything I want to change with it.
Okay. Now the thing is, this is the thing. This is not 3 players in 3 different positions. I chose these 3 because something unites all 3 of them together. Do you know what it is and why I picked these 3?
Okay.
Something links these 3 players. And oh, good. I'm glad there's a delay, because when people listen to this, I want them to scream at their iPods, iPhones, whatever it is, what the answer is, because someone probably had it at number 2. So we'll see at the first place. So I want to see if you get it.
Okay, so we've got Pringle, Damon Allen, and Alan Pitts. Alan Pitts only played in Calgary, so there's got to be something with that.
And I didn't say the thing that reunites them is the Canadian Football League.
Okay.
Maybe this isn't as obvious as I thought.
No, but
because
I'm sure
it's you. You know more about football than me.
Well, I'm more CFL-y, but I think they have a sibling in the NFL. No.
Nope.
Okay, I give up on that one. I don't.
All 3 players are the product of what college?
Oh, I could not tell you.
Cal State Fullerton.
Okay.
It was like the college in the 90s that fed it felt like it was the college at that time, because those 3 guys. And an interesting part, I don't know, I've always, every time I think of CFL colleges, and there wasn't a huge list, but I always think of Cal State Fullerton. They didn't have a program anymore. But oddly enough, I don't know why I'm obsessed with Cal State Fullerton, but oddly enough, until as recently as 2006 to 2008, these Cal State Fullerton alum were still the top in passing, rushing, and receiving yards in the Canadian Football League before their records officially got broke.
Okay. All right. Yeah. And I'll claim ignorant here because I am not a college football fan. You can ask.
And I figured with those 3 names, maybe it's me. I don't know. But I will always remember the great football program at Cal State Fullerton for guys like that. But maybe it's just me. The emails that we don't read will let us know. But we'll never know because we don't read them.
We don't read them. What's the first rule of Email Club? Is we don't talk about the emails that we don't read.
Yes, exactly.
All right.
Well, people would have a heart attack and die if they were listening to this podcast and they're like, "Oh my God, that's our email. That's the email I sent."
From 2021.
Yeah.
All right. So on that note, any final thoughts before we end the day?
No, fun little way to kick off 2005. Let everyone know we're still around, and looking forward to coming back once, at least free agency kicks off, and being able to talk about new players and new places. And if the Calgary Stampeders have finally accepted that they don't produce talent anymore, they got to go get it.
They definitely do. And on that note, for Tony, I'm Dalts. Well, let's let the
new booth announcer take place. You're listening to the Rouge Radio podcast. Catch them on Twitter. No.
I can't do it. I can't do it. That messes me up completely. I mean, it's fun to have and add characters, but anyway, you can follow us on Twitter at Rouge Radio, myself at Rouge Dalts, Tony at Tony Rouge. We are also active on the Skies That Are Blue, and obviously now that we're doing things through video cast, expect more stuff to be done on YouTube, and of course, like and subscribe on whatever application you use to listen to this. Apple, Spotify, TuneIn, iHeartRadio. There's a lot of other options. Imagine, but like and subscribe. Be sure to review. And again, as always, thanks for listening. We'll see you in about a month. Come create.
Thanks for listening. Find more great shows like this at CF Pod Network on Twitter.